Hi everyone, this is Stephanie at Hightower Stitching with today's video, which is 269, and it's sort of like my adventure in taking a pattern that I really like that I found in a book, but things that I'd like to change about it. And I usually don't have a lot of time to do that, so this was sort of fun. Stay tuned. This wall hanging is in the McCall's This Fall's Magazine 2025, about page 16. And boy, that's a wall hanging, and it really catches your eye because it's done with batiks, and it's easy to choose all of your colors because they all blend together. So what I looked at it and I thought, I really like this. And I said, I really like row 1 up there at the top. That's 2.5-inch blocks. How easy could that be? And then on row 2, they have a geometric figure, and it was done with foundation paper. And I really didn't want to do any foundation right now because I was using small pieces of fabric, and it takes more fabric to do the piecing on those. So I said, I'm going to think about that and come back and decide. So it's a 4.5-inch strip, and I thought, well, I could do embroidery, I could do applique, I could just quilt it with the quilting I'm using, any number of things, and it would actually sort of depend on if I was making it for somebody. And then row 3, well, that was neat. That was just those neat boxes. And number 4 is the crosses, and then it repeats itself going down. So I thought, okay, what am I going to do? And I started looking at my fabric because I like to find some pieces that already go together and then add to those and see what I get. And this is what I came up with. I picked some dominant blue and peach and green fabrics, and then I started adding to that as I went out. Now, this is another one of those where you need to cut all your patches. Well, for each row, as you're doing the row, though, that's what's nice. And cut all of those out because you want to lay them down and get them where you want them placed. And some of mine are kind of goofy placed, but I like it because it's so colorful. And like I told you, the first row has got 2 rows, sub rows, and those are made out of 2.5-inch blocks. And there's 18 blocks in each row of the combination of your background and the other. And the other thing I did is usually I use just plain cream background. Well, this is one of those lighter shirting fabrics, and it's got a little bitty dot in it, and I just really like that because it added to it. And number 2 was to be decided. Number 3, okay. Well, as I was doing this, I was thinking about how could I help the reader, or what have I learned from working on this, or the person watching the video? What did I learn as I was doing this? Well, I always call myself really reading the directions, right? And then I'm making my little charts and things like that. Well, row 3, when I got ready to put those 2 blocks together, there's 6 blocks, I thought, something's not quite right here. It's not fitting. And the first blocks fit. That was what's so funny. And then after that, I couldn't get the point to match because they were off. And what I had done is each of the sub blocks is made of 3 strips. And those are, just went blank, 2 inches by 4 3/4. And you sew the 3 together, no problem. And then I got excited because now I was ready to do the backing. which is a square from a square that's been divided once, and that gives you the two pieces. Well, it was pretty tight putting that little triangles on there, and I didn't even think about it. Well, finally, I went back to the book again. I read it. I said, okay, I still don't get it. Well, this is just so funny. So I said, okay, I'm reading that one more time. Well, the funny thing is that the strips are 2 inches by 4 3/4, and it says to trim your square down, your new square, and to 4 3/4. Well, you know, they're the right length, but I missed the part about the sideways part going to the side. And for some reason, I just got lucky. I don't know if my seams were a little bit bigger or whatever, but once I realized that, I only had one that was really too big and needed to be cut down. And so it's sort of like magic, you know, or determination or luck or whatever. So that was the one thing I learned, that you do have to trim down that middle box. Then in number 4, I love those. I love these rows, 3 and 4, those crosses. And you have 4 of your pattern color that you're using. And then you pick a center. And here again, these are working with 2-inch pieces. And in the description, I'll have how much fabric it takes to do those. And I just love those because there's 6 of those. And if you see, all of the patterns are lining up and the blocks line up. And then you get to number 5 and you repeat, and 6 and 7. So I actually did 1 and 7, and then I did 2, and I started putting it together. Well, there's a sashing, and I did the same thing that I did before. Once I had those 2 top rows laid out, I started picking fabrics and just laying them down by those to see which one I liked. And this black, it's got a little bit of white and a little bit of red, and it just popped. And I said, that's what I'm going to do. And it's 1.5 inches by 36.5. Now on sashing, I tend not to cut it to the directions, and I'm glad I didn't, because of some of the things that I did. My rows are actually a little bit longer, and so I didn't have to piece any of my sashing to get it to work. And then one of the things that I want to tell you too, one of my other things that I guess I sort of seem sort of lazy, but if you're looking at the X's, they have this point up here. And when you get this square done, it's really got a piece that's sticking out, because see, it's longer than the piece that you add right here. So it's got to be cut. So it had to be a 6.5 inch square, and it's so close. I said, okay, I'm just going to take a little bit off this side and a little bit off this side to make it 6.5. And that worked well until I started sewing them together. And I said, oh, and what's so funny is I had even thought about making a plastic template that was 6.5 inches, and I had a center point. And if I do this again, which I'm thinking about doing, is I would do that. Then I'd lay my template down on here and know that this was the little center spot. Then I could trim it off, and then I wouldn't have to. I kept turning them to try and get the pieces that would go together, and they did pretty good. But it would have been a lot easier if I had taken the template and trimmed it down that way, instead of just taking a little bit off of 2 sides. So now you can see I've got my layers all put together. I had enough material on the back to use the little black and white dots. And now my thing is to think about how I wanted to quilt this. and I'm going to quilt it on the machine. And then I'm in the back of my mind, every time I stop thinking about other things, I think, what would be colors that I would like to do another one? What would look different? And I've played with red, white, and blue because that is always stunning. And then I was playing with Christmas. I downstairs, well, the holidays, the December holidays, I have a nice box. I finally put all my December fabrics in one container. And I thought, boy, I've got enough in there that I can do it. And then just think about my background. Well, I was thinking, well, I might go with something like a white with little red dots or little red figures in there and see how it works. But I hope you enjoyed that. I enjoyed this quilt. I enjoyed learning something or realizing that I missed something. And I think that's why I want to make the next one, because I want to see what I can get and do it the first time without a couple of those errors in there. This is Stephanie at Hightower Stitching. I hope you enjoy this project. I hope you heard enough that you know whether you want to try it or not, and that you have choose your colors and go through with it. If I've forgotten anything, well, there other things will be in the description, like the sizes of the strips and any notes that I have, but I won't make you look at my mistakes again. And if you enjoyed this, or you please hit subscribe and like. Thank you for watching.